Now think about this. The stronger the emotion that you feel to some problem or some condition in your life or some person in your life, the more you pay attention to that person or problem. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, in fact, you're giving your power away to a lot of the problems in your life because that's where your attention is. If you're in a routine of waking up every morning and running through the same behaviors that you did the day before, if you wake up in the morning and you have to think about your problems to feel the emotions that are connected to those memories of those problems are old circuits in your brain, and every problem has an emotion associated with it. If thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel is your state of being, most people's entire state of being is in the past. So then once they're living in the familiar past, we can know by fact that they're going to be in a predictable future. So then how do you get a person then to lower the volume to those emotions so that they can begin to take their attention off the problems in their life, and it's their attention and anticipation of how they expect it to show up that keeps their observation from a quantum model, the reality being the same. It's not your personality that's creating your personal reality. It's your personal reality that's creating your personality. You're at effect of your environment, and your environment is actually controlling your thoughts and feelings. So if you said to me, well, I'm angry today because of this person, I'm upset because of this problem, then what you're really saying, just from an objective standpoint, that person or that problem is actually controlling how I think and feel. Which means if I'm reacting to the conditions in my environment, then for the most part I'm a victim to my environment. But turning the battleship around, turning that model around, because how you think and how you feel should begin to produce an effect in your life if you were able to change it. So then people have to lay down the very thing that they've been using their entire life in the same way to get what they want for something greater to happen. So the first day is about overcoming ourselves. It's taking your attention off your environment, forgetting about your body and the emotions and pain and disease and whatever else, and get beyond that program of a predictable future and a familiar past, and get beyond the concept of linear time and fall into the present moment. And that formula then has a biological effect in the brain and body that we can actually anticipate, expect, predict when we see a person starting to overcome themselves. And after looking at enough brain scans, I saw then that people were able to get beyond themselves to move into that creative state. Well, think about it. Have you ever sat at your computer writing an article or reviewing something or studying, and you look up and it's 2.5 hours later and you have no idea where time went? You lost track of the space you were in and the predictable time of the next moment. And when you lose track of space and time, if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, and you have no attention in this three-dimensional reality, then all of your attention is in a realm of thought, and we would call that the quantum. So now you can't enter the quantum field as a somebody. You have to enter as a nobody. So when you begin to get beyond yourself, what is your environment made of? People, objects, things, places, well, your body in space and time. So when you take your attention off all of those elements, you're disinvesting your attention and energy out of this three-dimensional reality, and you're placing your attention and energy in that field of possibilities. Now, what's the relevance of that? Well, think about it. Most people are their bodies trying to heal their bodies. And most people are their personality trying to change some aspect of their personality. They're trying to create some new future event, but they're wrapped up in the routine and program of how they live their life in the same way. But the truth is that we're all stuck in these programs, and they've lost their free will to a program because they run the same routine every single day. So
without knowing it.
Without knowing it. So then you need a crisis or a disease or a loss or a betrayal or a shock or something that you finally wake up, right? So our community of people, when they understand that they have to get beyond themselves, because when they do, now they're ready to create. They're not thinking about what they look like. They're not thinking about what anybody else thinks about them. They're not thinking about how long it's going to take. They start getting beyond those elements that keep them restrained and attached to their past, present reality. If you're watching television, don't watch anything that you don't want to experience because you're programming yourself for a specific outcome. And it turns out that many of the commercials are actually programming you for the very thing they have the solution for, if you look at it from an objective standpoint. So I thought, why not get a group of people to go into trance and understand the science behind it? And then instead of looking at some frivolous commercial, why not be the star of their own future? And when they play a strong song, like a powerful song that motivates them, and they're watching scenes of them in their future, just like when you were, watching, driving down the car and hearing a song on the radio and it reminds you of a time in your life, an associative memory, you're associating that song with some memories. From a biological standpoint, remembering your future is actually no different than remembering your past, and you can program your subconscious into that future. And so that helps people then to get clear on the future that they want to embrace, and it puts them in that right energetic or emotional states. When there's a great communication between the brain and the heart, people are more aware, they are more healthy, they're more connected, they're more present, they're more kind, they're more loving, they're more caring. If you look at some of the research out of Yale University in the 40s, some really elegant researchers, they came across the understanding that most people think that it's matter that emits a field. But in actuality, it's the field that creates matter. In other words, they started studying and understanding that certain rodents with certain propensities for certain cancers had a very specific electromagnetic signature in their field. And every single rodent that had that signature in their field had the type of uterine cancer. But there were certain rodents that had the signature in the field that didn't develop the cancer yet, but they ultimately developed the cancer. So it wasn't matter that emits a field, it's the field that creates matter. So the question is, if you can change the field, can you change matter? So then, how much of people's day do they put on matter, their attention on matter? I would say for most people 100% of the time.
Very close to it.
If you get a group of people that yet they're taking all of their attention off of everything material and physical, and you can explain this invisible field of energy and information that exists beyond this space and time. There's no people there, there's no things there, there's no objects, there's no places, there's no planets, there's no light from the stars, there's no stars. It's an invisible field of nothing. But just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So then you can only experience that realm with your awareness. And when you become pure consciousness, you leave this three-dimensional reality behind. Now you can execute greater effects on the nature of reality, on the material world. So in other words then, in order for you to heal your body, you got to get beyond your body. In order for you to change something in your outer environment, you got to get beyond the memory and the emotions that keep you connected to the problem that exists in your outer world. And so then people start to figure this out, and you're having them every day paying attention to this field, keeping their awareness on it, staying present with it, becoming more aware of it, feeling it, moment after moment after moment, every single time they have an experience or they feel something. Experience lays down circuitry in their brain. So now they're laying down the hardware for them to experience that field even more the next time. And plasticity works where you have to stretch beyond the known. You have to stretch outside your comfort zone. So then as they start to interact with that field, with their awareness, not with their bodies, but with their awareness, the brain's tracking it neurologically. And so now they're putting the circuits in place for them to stay connected to the field. And then the side effect of that is they start producing greater effects on their life because now they understand now what they're doing and why they're doing it. So we're not linear beings living a linear life. We're in fact very dimensional. And when you begin to activate these latent systems, there's a connection between the physics of the field with the biology of the brain. And when that system switches on, people really have a very profound, full-on sensory experience without their senses. And because the science is the language of mysticism, I mean, the moment you start talking about a religious or tradition or an ancient culture, you're going to divide an audience because you hear a certain word and you can't associate with it, or you have a meaning that's not the correct meaning. You divide a community, you divide an audience, and I think science unifies. And plus, whoever said whatever 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years ago, that was the language of 2,000 or 5,000 or 1,000 years ago. It wasn't the language of today, you know. So science is that language, I think. And so when you begin to bridge the mystical with the science and you start talking about these systems,